share space and learn together with our wonderful speakers, Mandy Carter, Victoria Kirby York, Eric D. Martin, who could not be here, sends his regards. So we'll just imagine him in our space with us and our very own Kamal Pope. After these acknowledgments, Kamal will invite our panelists to introduce themselves and guide us through a discussion of Black and queer past, present, and futures through the work of the National Black Justice Coalition. This program is just one of the many events that we've held in conjunction with the Mandy Carter Scientist of Activism exhibit since our opening celebration in June, including an online panel with Mandy, Kamal, Walter Nagel, and the Barbara Smith, which you can view online, and an upcoming writing workshop that we're hosting in November. All details of these are on our website, which is the Bingham Center website, which you can look up later. One particular joy of having this exhibit up during the semester for Laura, Kamal, and Mandy, and I, and many others, is working with several undergraduate classes who spent time deeply engaging with the exhibit as part of their coursework. Professor Cece Jaji, Lana Storti, Leslie Maxwell, Jennifer Ahern Dodson, Cecilia Marquez, and Adrienne Lynn Smith have all brought their students to be inspired by Mandy's leadership and activism. We also appreciate the ongoing commitment of our colleagues Meg Brown, Yoon Kim, Kimber Hines, Kamal Pope, Mandy herself, who have helped bring this exhibit to life, and to our Bingham Center intern, Colette Hartley, who helped prepare for this program. We're also grateful, as always, for the support of Duke Libraries, Reverend Jeanette Stokes, the program in Gender, Sexuality, and Feminist Studies, Department of History, the E. Rhodes and Leona B. Carpenter Foundation, and our center's founder, Sally Bingham, who's here tonight. So please join me in a warm welcome.
Now I think it's on. Okay. Hello, lovely people. How's everybody doing today? Good. Awesome. It's great to see you all. It's great to be here. Really excited for the conversation that we are all going to have today. My name is Kamal Pope. I'm a PhD candidate in the department here in history at Duke. And I'm really excited to have worked collaboratively with Mandy on this project, and we're all going to make sure we stay hydrated. Really important.
Yes.
So to get us started, I wanted to invite both Mandy and Victoria to introduce themselves and kind of give us the story of like why we're here, who are your people, and the work that you all do.
Well, when you're invited by a queen, a legend, an icon like Mandy Carter, you don't say no. It is such an honor and a privilege to be able to pay homage to someone whose work made the work that I do today possible. And I don't take the invitation or the opportunity lightly. And anytime I have the opportunity to honor and lift up your name and legacy, I'm gonna take it. So thank you for allowing me to bear tribute to the work that you've done and the fact that the National Black Justice Coalition wouldn't exist, literally, without you being a part of the group that helped to found us. My name is Victoria Kirby York. I'm the Director of Public Policy and Programs at the National Black Justice Coalition. But my first foray, I realized that I have my own kind of anniversary this year. It's been exactly 25 years since my very first campaign. I was in middle school, actually, in Florida. Yeah, no, but seriously, we've been talking about youth activism, and a big part of your work also is included in youth. But y'all might remember the days where people could just smoke indoors whenever they wanted to. I was a part of the effort of young folks in the state of Florida that helped to bring Philip Morris to his knees and to help stop indoor smoking. In Hillsborough County, where I grew up, but also throughout the rest of the state, and thankfully throughout the rest of the country. No offense to those who like to light up a little bit. Glad y'all can still do that outside. I'm glad you have those rights. But I started my career, it feels like a joke now because my health has continued to have its own challenges, but I really started my career doing health advocacy. First, as I mentioned, as a middle schooler, but also working to make the Affordable Care Act a reality under President Obama's administration. And it was during that time when I actually first got involved with NBJC. I was in grad school and my goal was to make Howard the first historically Black college to have an LGBT resource center. Sadly, some others beat us to the punch. But it awakened in me this fire to not only do the healthcare advocacy, which had long been a big part of my why, but to fight for Black LGBTQ plus and same gender loving people who time and time again, when you looked at the statistics, it was just like, yep, we're at the bottom there. Oh, education, housing, okay, there too. And to me, so many of the solutions are simple, just in having conversations with people that I know and in my life and in my own life. But it's about being able, and Mandy talks about this a lot, who gets to make the decisions and whose voices are valued and heard, right? To take those solutions that we hear every day around the kitchen tables to people who can actually make systematic change, not just for one community, but for across the country. And so started working with NBJC when I was trying to get Howard's LGBT Center off the ground. I did a research, my undergraduate research thesis was on the need for LGBT inclusive spaces at HBCUs. When I was in grad school, the piece got picked up by Harvard's inaugural LGBTQ policy journal. And unbeknownst to me afterwards, because it was just like, well, I did this thing, I should put it somewhere, right? And I was like young and dumb. And many years later, learned that NBJC was using the research to create their HBCU cultural competency work. And then it went on to Trinice McNally, who helped do a lot of the LGBT inclusion work with North Carolina's HBCUs. Ran into me at one Creating Change conference who was just like, your research is my Bible. And I was just like, what? What are you talking about? That was so long ago in my mind, a lifetime of work ago. And that was at the time I was then doing Democratic Party politics, but it was kind of a recentering moment of you know what, your why is really rooted in this work. And I was really glad to be able to come back to NBJC as a staff person to help, keep moving this work forward, especially at a time where we're able to make change. But never at any point do I not realize that none of it would be possible without these strong shoulders right here. And others. But you got some strong shoulders, man. I'm sure you carry them others with you. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Tell us about those shoulders, Mandy.
I don't know about all that, y'all, but first of all, I am so happy to be back here. And I have to say, I've never met Sally. I said Sally Bingham this and Sally Bingham that in a good way because of the center. And I got to meet you for the first time. Thank you, Sally. And I'm very humbled, I will say, that I always mention this because I always wonder how did we all end up in this room. So my story is very short. Born November 2nd, 1948. First 18 years, Albany Children's Home, Schenectady Children's Home, a Black foster family in Chatham Center, New York. But thank you to a social studies teacher in Mount Pleasant High School in 1965, brought in someone from the American Friends Service Committee, changed my life. Now we're in Schenectady, home of GE, we bring good things to life. Well, this person who came in from the American, people familiar, Quakers, AFC, kind of, Well, it turns out our social studies teacher was a Unitarian, did not know that. But this young white student came in from AFC, and the three things he said that day, and you might relate to this, were, well, the Religious Society of Friends believes in full equality and justice for all. That's number one. Number two, we understand the importance of the power of one. We all have a moral compass, and every once in a while we get to decide how we might want to utilize that. That went completely over my head. But then he said, we have a high school work camp in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. Who wants to go? Game changer. I went, and this is 1965. Think of what was happening.
Yeah.
63, Kennedy killed down in Dallas. You also had some of the images coming out of what was happening down south, the hoses and the dogs and all that, not a clue. But when we were having these little classes every day, I think it was like maybe 15 of us, they would bring resource people in. And this couple came from the Highlander Center. If you're not familiar with the Highlander Center, if you know Guy and Candy Carowin, if you've heard of Rosa Parks, if you heard of Martin Luther King, it was a wonderful place out in Tennessee, specifically formed for black and white folk to come together and talk about how do we make change in the civil rights movement. Well, Guy and Candy Carowin, as two white, they called themselves cultural workers, they were taking the tape recorder. They were going into the South and recording the freedom songs and the meetings in the South. One of the groups was called the Freedom Singers. Bernice Johnson Reagan, Sweet Honey in the Rock. But then they got back to the power of one, and I think this is the one that I think is so relevant to us right now. I mean, if we did a go around, Laura, how'd you end up in this room? Why are you doing what you're doing? I'm looking at you, Meg, and Kelly, and, name me a person that's out there, Jeanette, I'm seeing a bunch of other people, Melanie. They said that essentially each and every one of us at some point in our lives reaches a point where what we decide to do can make a difference. And the story they shared was about, I don't want to get too emotional, but Emmett Till.
Oh, yeah.
Emmett Till, 14-year-old young single mom down the South, South of Summer, and the brutal murder of this young man because some white woman made a lie. And she finally admitted it after all these years later, but the murder of this young black kid. And I have to say that when they found his body, I mean, it's a long story, but he was thrown in a river, they found his body, they contacted his mother back home, and she said, "Send my baby home." And then she said, "I want an open casket because I want people to see what hate looks like." Thousands of people came by that and looked at that. That casket is now at the Smithsonian Museum. But I wonder every day we wake up, and what are the things we see or something might happen, you hear something, when we have one of those moments, I could have said something, the power of one, and you think about that. And now I'm also thinking it in the most practical way. This is a little cute, but I have to just say it. Michael Jordan, not because he's a good basketball player, but as a black man wore an earring. Game changer. I ain't wearing no earring. People, nuh-uh. One earring, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. But I bring that to this conversation now because I'm thinking, thank you for this wonderful exhibit. And by the way, that exhibit is not just about Mandy. I think it's about all collectively who we've been involved in, why we're intentional. I'm looking at the wonderful thing. And now we want to just have a conversation and more about now what? What do we do with this when we leave and what we have in terms of the upcoming thing? So that's it, and let's just figure out how we're gonna go about doing this. Sound good? All right.
You always know how to set the stage, Mandy. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Mandy. It's good to get a sense of who you both are and what you all are bringing and the different experiences that you bring to the work that you all do. So the point of this is to think about the past, the present, and also looking towards the future, kind of what Mandy said. The what, so what, now what. And so I want to ground us back 20 years ago when NBJC was founded. It was really good, Victoria, to hear your own journey into your organization and just the ways that it's evolved over time. But I'd love to hear from both of you. Maybe we start with Mandy. Mm-hmm. Why was NBJC something that you were like, I need to found this organization. The National Black Justice Coalition needs to exist, and it needs to exist now.
Thank you for asking, because I think I can answer that for you. Actually, before we had the National Black Justice Coalition, there were several organizations that were the founding of what we now call the National Black Justice Coalition. At one point, it was called the National Black Lesbian and Gay Leadership Forum. And I think way back in the day in DC,
National Coalition of Black gay and lesbian.
Yes, and you had that too. So you have, so it goes back further than that. And I think what happened, like with many organizations, as the National Black Lesbian and Gay Leadership Forum was kind of figuring out what now, we're not sure, they decided collectively maybe we need to just stop for what it is at the moment. But for those of us who helped found it, people who have been supporting it said, well, let's not stop it. Why don't we take it and just come up with a new name, but also look where we were. We started it in 2003. What was happening in 2003? Remember that big marriage equality decision that happened in Massachusetts where the Massachusetts State Supreme Court agreed on marriage equality. So the National Black Justice Coalition ended up being a number of the former board members, activists, funders. We got together, and I don't know if you know this, but anyone can rent the National Press Club. So we rented the National Press Club. You pay for that wonderful logo behind you. And we had a black gay couple, and we had a black lesbian couple from DC. And we were there to announce not only who we were, but we were in full support of not gay marriage, marriage equality. One reporter from the Washington Post showed up. And we thought, power of one. The next day we get a call from who? Julian Bond. Julian Bond, the first black legislator elected in the state of Georgia, president of the NAACP, and he asked, what can I do to help? And what he did to help in terms of like thinking about the incredible confluences of that conversation. He ended up having a conversation with myself and Sylvia Rue, because we wanted to talk about the notion of marriage equality within the black community. Now, in the black community, there's a tradition called jumping the broom, similar to marriage equality, but they did this incredible booklet. We have copies of it, right? And where they would describe different ways in which marriage equality would happen. But then we decided, well, what if we did a guide, and we ended up, don't mourn organizers the need, fill it. We ended up with this thing called Talking About Gay and Transgender Issues in the African American Community, June 2012, the National Black Justice Coalition. Here it is. And it's now digitized. You want to say more about this?
Well, first I have to say, I was just looking for that the other day. And so when you sat down, I was like, wait a minute. I was trying to type the name into a report. Divinity. So you have to think about going back to the timing of when this was published, in 2011 or 2012. We had just lost, as the broader LGBTQ movement, nearly 24 fights at the ballot in states around marriage. I remember being heartbroken when Florida passed their constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. And NBJC, along with the Human Rights Campaign, Donna Payne, who was one of our co-founders, who was working at HRC at the time, leading their HBCU and diversity work to really change the game in Maryland. There's a documentary called The New Black that talks about this campaign. But Maryland and Maine happened in the same year. 2012 was the first time since the fights began that we won at the ballot. And a big part of that fight in Maryland, because Maryland has over 30% black population, was engaging the African American community, something that was not done very well in 2008 during the Prop 8 campaign, and no one wanted to get that wrong again. We wanted to learn the lessons, take the things that worked well during that campaign, and take the lessons from the things that were like, to do Maryland better. And so this guide, which came out in June 2012, just several months ahead of Election Day, was created to really ensure that folks, whether you were an ally or you were part of the community, knew how to have the conversation in ways that were helpful and would also lead to people voting to make sure that marriage equality became the law, at least in Maryland. And that paved the way. It also was around the time President Obama,
I was just thinking,
literally, I think it was like in that time period, I was working on his campaign at the time. And people were really worried that in cities like St. Petersburg, which had large black populations in Florida and across the country, that him being pushed out by the vice president to be in support of marriage equality, it was gonna hurt the campaign efforts. But between what the president said and the work in Maryland, it allowed us to create a new narrative around the marriage conversation. It allowed us to recenter the theme, not on the 1,000+ rights that happened in marriage, which people just, that was kind of what we were doing from like 2004 to 2012 as a movement, like really just giving the legal reasons that, you know, people just kind of roll their eyes back, like, like, we don't even think about those things. And really talked about love and what that meant. And that was really a big theme in the efforts, especially with clergy.
Especially with clergy.
There was a whole group that NBJC helped organize of African American clergy throughout Maryland who were in support of marriage equality and saw it from the lens of faith, you know, with the faith forward message. And that was really important because a couple years later you have the Prop 8 makes it to the Supreme Court. You have Edie Windsor's case that makes it to the Supreme Court. And now we start to have wins, right? We start to see public opinion shift to the majority of Black folks being in support of marriage equality and in support of discrimination protections for our community. But not just in the Black community. You see that shift in almost every community.
Right.
Religious and non-religious, across races. And so it really helped to shift the narrative of our community being these constant losers on this issue to being some winners. Winners, you know, that to this day people still kind of hedge on, but y'all been winning things. I'm like, yeah, but you know, we just started to win. We still have a lot more to go. Like, we still need housing. We still need, you know, the Equality Act to get discrimination protection in all these other places. But that was a big turning point, and this was a big resource, both in person and also digitally, for people who are struggling with how to have these conversations.
Like it. And you know, and one thing I wanted to share real quick is that, you know, when this was written, we got some wonderful quote from Mildred Jeter. Mildred Jeter was Mildred Loving, and they actually contacted her. And I just want to read this real quick, and then we'll get on to the next thing as well. This is from Julian Pond. Dear legislator, because it went to all lawmakers, and it said, for the NAACP, the issue of marriage equality, at least as far back as the Supreme Court case of Loving versus the state of Virginia in 1967, the year before she died, Mildred Loving, who successfully sued to end inequality around marriage equality and sanction of marriage inequality based on race, wrote a powerful piece that ended, I am proud that the Richards and my name is on a court case that can help reinforce the love, the commitment, the fairness, and the family that so many people, Black or white, young or old, gay or straight, seek in life. I support the freedom to marry for all. That's what loving and loving is all about. Word. Word. Thank you, Mildred. Thank you, the lawyers. Thank you for the people who made this a reality what it is. And I graduated high school in 1966. I said, yo, you said what? What? Anyway, next.
Well, just on that, we were talking about the importance of papers, like being able to document your history. And that letter, actually, in organizing NBJC's papers last winter, came across the original letter that she wrote.
And it's, yeah.
Yeah, like literally, like broke down crying. Archives, because it's so beautiful. Yeah, so beautiful. And it's just so important what you all are doing here, because too often our people don't have the chance to tell our own stories and to shape our own stories. And so the fact that Mandy has been such a big part of this exhibit and this process is just really beautiful. And I hope that more institutions follow Duke's lead in really ensuring that our stories get told by us.
Yeah.
And not after we die. By us. Every year.
Yeah. Give us our flowers now. That's what I always say. Which is funny because on the opening of the exhibit, Mandy actually got flowers, but then forgot to pick them up, so they ended up at my house.
I wanted to bring flowers to ask Mandy, I said, what's your favorite flowers? Then I was just like, I'm actually allergic to flowers. After I brought
part of the conversation. I was like, I didn't think that through. I'm gonna get something for you.
And whoever provided the flowers too as well.
Yes, yes. So, you know, I feel like what's really important about this space, and as I work with Laura, Kelly, and Meg, and Yoon, and a lot of other folks who I've had to just pick my brain about how to talk about Mandy's story, how to talk about these movement anniversaries. And as
Yeah, our
we go-
20th is coming up. NBJC's 20th is
yeah,
in
y'all
December.
are- yeah, y'all, we're all decades of
20 years since that press conference at the press club.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the things that was really important for me is trying to cultivate a space that talked about the struggles of organizing and didn't romanticize it, but I also wanted it to be a place of like just radical joy, specifically Black queer joy. And I am curious to know if you all could share, you know, when I think about the present moment, and also just the challenges that we all face in organizing and the times we're in. I'm sure, Victoria, you go on day for days about what's going on in Florida right now, and how that's like kind of echoing up in DC and just the conversations you're having. Maybe we could go on for ever talking about what's going on in North Carolina. But I want to know what has been challenging in your work, but what are the ways that you've been able to find joy? What are the moments of joy that you all have had in the struggle?
Good question. You know, it's funny, when I was getting ready to do this today, and anyway, in fact, I'm looking around in the audience and I recognize a number of faces and things we've had conversations about. One thing I've always been struck by is like, how do you measure a success? And I have to tell you, the one that probably makes the most sense to me, does anyone remember when Jesse Helms ran against Harvey Gantt in 1990? That will have to go down as probably one of the most seminal, who in the world had thought about that happening? But I was thinking about that because after that huge, it was an incredible organizing we got done. It was national, international, it was amazing. But then someone made a comment once, and I wonder if people can relate to this. Sometimes you lose forward. And I thought about that because all the work we had done around that Helms-Gantt race, and remember, thank you, Harvey, when someone asked him, well, what do you think about these gay people? Hey, I represent all of North Carolina. I have no problem with that. And then, of course, Jesse Helms comes out, Harvey Gantt is pro-gay, blah, 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 whatever. But the coalition that we had to pull together in all 100 counties in the state of North Carolina was a game changer. Because if you think about, as a U.S. Senator, and I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but you know, and by the way, when you're in Congress, the longer you're there, the more seniority you get. But by the time he got done with a list of everyone he didn't like, I said, I don't like women. I don't like people of color. I said, that's the people I want to be hanging with, y'all. And that was the coalition that actually ended up getting not only our first Black president, son of an interracial marriage, we now have, and also locally. But I thought about that, because sometimes you lose forward. Because now when you think about the issue of marriage equality, it started out in Massachusetts, someone said, what if? Let's try that. That ended up being picked up by other lawyers in different states. And if you try it, we tried here. In the city of Durham, does anyone remember the recall of Mayor Wib Gully because Wib Gully dared to issue a proclamation for a gay pride march down 9th Street? Remember, there was an outrage. They had buttons, you know, there was a Black minister who's up still up there on Fayetteville Street, have to be careful. But he said, you know, we ain't taking all this stuff. And so we ended up making, he said, oh yeah, they came up with a statement like, what are we, Sodom on the Eno button? What is this? What is this? Who is it? Oh, what are we, San Francisco of the South? Carol Anderson button. So we kept on making these buttons and bumper stickers and trying to think of this is what you say. But what's so astounding is that all the work we had done, you know, by precinct and county and state and all that, that is just to this day. Because it wasn't just that one particular issue. And I think about it now, it's also in different languages, different cultures. And if you think about if that's a lesson learned culturally, but also other lesson learned, hearts and minds in public policy, how critical. You know, I'm thinking of, who was the sister who wanted to be president? Oh, my mind's full. Shirley Chisholm. Remember, she said, I dare to dream that. That's not it, that's a win. So that would be one example I think of. And then the question is, when we all leave here now, we have some things coming up right now. You know, the elections are happening, school board things are happening. I'm very excited about Freedom Summer for next year, 60th anniversary. Now would be the time to start thinking of part of that. She was talking about her 6-year-old daughter. You know, we have the social justice story time, you know, children, and, you know. So this is wonderfulness of just excitement and energy. And to me, if you get pushback, it means you're probably on the right track. Think about that. And how do we then figure out how we have conversation? And I could not ever talk enough about the importance of faith-based organizing. Faith-based organizing, however you want to define it. In the children's home, we were sent to some church, boring, with all due respect. And then I went to my first black church and said, now, if y'all had gotten this to me first, that might be. But, you know, people are Unitarians, people are, you know, whatever it might be, but whatever you define, but that spiritualness is like something really important. So, what do you think?
Well, I'm 100% on the spiritual piece. That was another reason I left party politics for the social justice work. Was hearing about Leila Alcorn's suicide in 2014. She took her life. She was a teenage girl trans girl from the Midwest, and her mother told her that God didn't love her anymore because she was trans. And I was literally doing some things you're not supposed to do. I have a sleeping disorder, so one of the things out there is to tell people sometimes I do scroll while I'm driving when there's nobody else around to help me stay awake. I think that's what I tell myself. Anyway, I was doing that when that article came through on Huffington Post, and it was just like clear as day. Don't let these people continue to talk in my name, saying that any of this has to do with me. Because when you actually look in the Bible to look at Sodom and Gomorrah, and the prophet Ezekiel laid it plain what Sodom and Gomorrah was about. Nothing to do with gay people, and everything to do with how we treat our neighbors and how we treat each other. So if we want to talk about what Sodom and Gomorrah is, it's anytime our lawmakers make decisions to harm people who we should otherwise be building the beloved community for and on behalf of. And so much of your work has been about building the beloved community across all of the different identities you possess. And so I just wanted to say that, because the whole faith piece just always kind of brings me back to that moment, because there's so much work that we have to do. And when we look at the polling data from PRRI, Public Religious Research Institute, it shows the majority of people of faith are with us. And yet that's still not the narrative that we most commonly see. And in fact, there's a data point that I'm always like, y'all gotta bring this survey question back. But in their first survey looking at this, they asked this question, I think it's pivotal.
Yeah.
They asked each respondent to guesstimate where they thought the percentage of support in their faith was for LGBTQ people. And the vast majority was like, yeah, like maybe 38%. Right? So part of it is we act like we're in the minority of beliefs when we're actually in the majority. And so we're all going around timid, like, oh, I got this big scary idea nobody's gonna mess with. Like, you know, so what you were saying about dreaming that big vision, right? And working towards that, that's what we have to do. Instead of assuming that we're in the minority, assume that we're always in the majority. And in this case, we actually are. Right? When you see what happened with the Fight for 15, I remember people thinking initially, nobody's gonna vote for $15 an hour minimum wage. That's a big jump. You're trying to go from $8.75 to $15 an hour. Next thing I know, there are all these cities being organized, and it was happening. Right?
Yep.
And there's so many examples like that, right? Where there's someone who is bold enough to have an idea and then organize people around it to make it happen. That's what democracy is.
I like it.
Right?
In fact, I'm looking at Melanie. What was it called? Allies for Change. We're doing faith-based organizing. Where's it? Minnesota? Michigan. Oh, it starts with an M. Michigan. But I thought about that. You know, when you think about how that, you know, and a lot of it is faith-based, but it's also faith-based connected to social issues. You know, food, jobs. You know, economy, whatever it might be. But how critical that is, and how we all decide how we want to be a part of what that might be.
I'm glad you said Minnesota, because I had an error earlier. So in 2012, Minnesota was the other state, And the interesting thing was, in Maryland, you had folks intentionally organizing the Black community thoughtfully, and in Minnesota, you had people intentionally organizing communities of faith. That got us in those marriage equality wins. And so, yeah, when you said Minnesota, I was like, wait a minute! There's one aspect, I gotta get back to that, so that's not lost.
Thank you all for that.
Yeah.
So I want to open it up for questions. We have Victoria for a limited time because
Yeah, we have to
there's
get
a
her on.
6-year-old who's like really excited to decorate some pumpkins.
Yes.
And so Victoria is of high demand. So I wanted to open up some questions to the audience. Wanting to like see if anyone has specifically any questions for Victoria, and then me and Mandy will kind of be
Okay.
around and be able to answer questions as
Got it.
well. So are there any questions that folks have? Yes.
Well, I'll just jump in. One of the few things that makes me feel hopeful these days is the resurgence of the American labor movement, starting with the strikes at Starbucks. And I wonder if you feel connected with that, if you feel that's part of your struggle, or if that feels completely white and alienating.
It's definitely good. It's definitely arm in arm with our movements and has been. I see Polly Murray's Proud Shoes in the mix of Mandy's show and tell articles. And I was like a kid at Disneyland because she took me by the Polly Murray home. And Polly and Mandy and Nadine Smith are like my three like guiding lights in terms of the work that I do. And so to be able to be with Mandy while looking at what's at the home was just wonderful. When you look at Polly Murray's history and Bayard Rustin's history, these two huge Black queer icons, right? They both infused, and we talk a lot about the Black and LGBTQ component, and for Polly, the like gender component, but labor was huge for both of them as well. I mean, just as important as being guided by Gandhi's disciples, Bayard was also really mentored by A. Philip Randolph and organizing Black labor and helping to integrate the labor communities. And Polly, so much of the challenges that they experienced in their life had to do with constantly feeling like they weren't making enough money, right? And not having the economic security that they needed to have. And that was a struggle throughout their entire life, no matter how brilliant they were. Or how many, glass ceilings they broke through, And so labor has always been a community that has been arm in arm with civil rights and also within the LGBTQ plus community. There are a number of those ballot initiatives. Labor helped to support and finance some of that, which helped to build infrastructure. And when you look at the entertainers who are striking right now, the writers and the actors, so many of them are members of our community. And so, we actually meant to put these on your guys' chairs, I'll put them somewhere. But, Bayard Rustin, here we go.
Has anyone seen the film Rustin yet? Has it come here yet?
No.
All right.
So so we're having a screening in DC tomorrow, and just the labor component, I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to say this, because that hopefully will be a big part of the storytelling in the film. I'll see it tomorrow, so I'll know for sure. But this, we are continuing our push to get a stamp made in Bayard Rustin's honor. And a big part of that is uniting all these communities that have been a long part of his story, which definitely includes the labor movement, definitely includes the civil rights community, the LGBTQ community, the Quaker and peace-seeking community. And so there's a QR code on this flyer that will take you to our action hub where you can send a request to Postmaster General Louis DeJoy asking for this stamp to be done. All of the people he mentored were in the Black Heritage Stamp Collection. And they were like, oh, we're gonna give y'all Martin Luther King and Whitney Young, like all the people that he literally trained on the principle of nonviolent civil disobedience. But we're gonna leave Rustin out. He's a little too gay for that. We're gonna leave him out. We're not leaving him out anymore. We're fixing that. So take action there for those who'll see the recording. You can go to mbjc.org/mbjc-action-hub. And this QR code will take you directly there. On the back of here is just more information about other trailblazers like Mandy, including Mandy's bio. Beenhere.org, where you can learn more about those who made this work possible. But yeah, we can't get to freedom without all of these movements working together. Because often it's the same forces that don't want us to work together. And honestly, they've been working their butts off for 500 years. There's a reason there's a whole 200, I was talking to a historian last night about this over dinner, incidentally. There's a whole 200 years we don't talk about American history. It's like we talk about Christopher Columbus, and then we skip right to the American Revolution. There's a whole lot of interracial mixing in those 200 years. There was a whole lot of low-income folks organizing together in those 200 years. There was a reason that they redefined slavery the way in which they did. Because in the beginning, you had indentured servants, black and white, coming over here, right? There was a practical reason why they structurally decided to separate us legally, right, with penalty. And there's a reason we don't talk about those 200 years. Because it's a reminder that there was a different way that was being built, that was eradicated, right? And so we can get back to that. It's in us. And we've already begun to do that work. We just have to continue to do it more and see ourselves as united in much the same way that Mandy has led her career and her life's work.
Okay. Other questions? Yes.
I just want people to know that shortly after the first of the year, a quarter will be issued with Polly Murray on it.
Oh, did you hear that? A quarter will be issued oh my goodness.
The U.S. Mint, yeah.
Amazing,
I
thank you.
can't wait to say, run me my Murrays.
I'm gonna buy the first, remember when the Harvey milk stamp came up, I went down and I had to get the first quarters, I'm gonna have to bet, you know.
You'll hear more about it.
All right, thank you, Jeanette.
But one of the reasons that Polly Murray is such a good icon, mentor, example is that they worked on so many issues. Worked on labor issues personally, worked on integrating restaurants, and taught at a university, became a priest. And so there isn't a way to divide out. And it's one of the reasons that we're lucky to have Polly Murray as a local saint in Durham.
Thank
Yes.
you, Jeanette. Thank you. Other?
And you're lucky you have this living legend here as well here in Durham.
I get a little concerned when I hear that because you know what, I have to drive home, I'm gonna have to worry if I can hit a curb or something. Like, what up, yo? But any more questions, especially for, yes? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, as I'm sitting here thinking, especially like about my graduate work, which kind of intertwines what y'all do, what are your thoughts on, as of like where we are right now in society with like, one, everyone bickering just about stupid stuff and everything, and the fight for equity, and I mean the point of, as a queer woman myself, and Christian and queer, which is a lot of intersectionality, everyone wants to fight, and it's like, I'm fighting for everybody, whether you want to look at it as equity or feminism, like, where do you, I guess, how do you deal with the fact that everyone has the issue, but I bring it back to love, and like, we all deserve healthcare and water, and like, basic necessities, but we all want to fight, like, oh, you did it this way and this way and this way. So how do you, like, I guess, come back to the center of your work and remind everyone, like, we're literally all on the same page, no matter if you're pissed off about a Facebook post or whatever else.
Ooh, that's a big part of
Good question.
what I feel called to do in terms of bridge building. Because just looking at history, we've come back to this place of bickering over stuff every time. And unfortunately, every time we've then had to spend our 40 years in the wilderness. When we could just be enjoying some victories and popping some champagne, right? Like, we don't have to like demonize one strategy. We can have a strategy and a goal to get to, but all these different tactics work, right? Whether it's W.E.B. Du Bois versus, Booker T. Washington, or Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X, or, you know, do we do the civil you know what I'm trying to get out. Thanks for working with me. Yes. or, you know, have more militant ideas. There's room for all of the pathways because there's an audience that needs to be reached from all the pathways. My pathway to making change is not going to reach the person who says, but I want this thing done right now. Right? Because I'm always worried, there's the thing where you say, some people, you know, teach people to fish for themselves, and some people just, you know, make sure you have a meal every night, right? There's a mixture, and both are needed. You don't want anybody to starve, and you gotta fix the system so that person doesn't starve, period. If something happens to you, and you can no longer bring them the fish every night. Right? But we get so invested in, but see, my way makes sure that, you know, because every night I'm coming. We don't think about well, what if something happens? Right? And so we really do need the variety of these strategies, so we have to be in coordination with each other so we know what the inside and the outside game are at the same time, right? I may not agree with the way you're going about it, but there's probably a good 100,000 people out there that they're going to hear what you have to say and be like, bet. I didn't really care what Victoria had to say. She was like, had my eyes going back. I was glazing over in boredom. She was talking about systems and doing policy making and getting meetings with the president and Congress. And I just want to hit the streets. I'm not really trying to do all that stuff she's talking about, right? But the streets matter, right? Both matter. And so it's just I hate that the history continues to repeat itself, where you see movements kind of construct to themselves, okay, y'all don't have us all the time, so we got us, so we're not gonna talk to y'all anymore. And it's no, we might not always agree on everything, but we still need to be in community with each other, because there is nobody, and I use this example all the time because I'm married, but there is nobody, I've not found anybody.
Okay.
There might be somebody, I've not found anybody
Yeah.
who has married somebody that they 100% agree with every day, all the time. Even twins don't agree with each other every day, all the time. Yet we expect our movements and our leaders to agree with everything that we agree all the time. And if there's one thing that we differ in, it's oh, I'm canceling you. I can't have you in my life. You just triggered the hell out of me because, because you said this thing that I can't deal with. Right? The reality is, there is no perfection. There is only progress. And so, you're right, is the short answer. And the thing we have to do is continue to call people in to say, look, is this the goal or not? Because if we got the same goal, we're good. Right? You go about your way, organize your people. I'm going to go about my way, organize my people. We're going to meet every, third Thursday of the month. We're going to talk about what each side is doing. We're going to keep it moving. That's what has to happen.
And we also all have histories.
Yes.
We have also been brought along by others. Huh?
That's right.
We're not there on our own.
That's
So
right.
we can remember, if someone's brought me along, I can also turn to bring someone else along. Who may not be there where I am, out of gratitude for people like Mandy. So I've been ahead of it. So thank you for what you said. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for what you just shared too. Yeah.
And I was going to ask you back, what did you think about? Well, how would you answer your question you just asked? You got a thought?
Yeah, because I've been thinking about, I think about moment in time. I graduated in 2020, so I didn't have a graduation, the world ended. Bada bing. But I was at home and rest his soul, I watched everything of George Floyd. I saw literally everything. But in that moment in time, someone pointed out, you had the witches out there. You had the Amish out there. You had everybody in the streets. It didn't matter. At one moment in time, we were all there. And not just because of this one black man, because we were pissed off. We were done. The whole world was on fire, and we were done. And then it's kind of at this moment now, like you said, we're in our little sectors, and we're still asking for the general project of okay, we still need to push this forward, but we're also again bickering. So again, I'm big on community and asking questions, and I'm also that bold, maybe naive person that I want to look at skinhead in the face and be why? So I truly want to know why, because as a faith person, if you could only know how beautiful you really are and how much love I have for you, even though you hate me and you would want to put me in a tree right now, I'm never going to do that to you. And as much hate as you've been fed, I promise you, people actually want to love you. And we want to know why,
Yeah.
or for what reason you have an issue with us, because we don't have an issue with you. We just want to live like you want to live. So I think it's a lot of questioning, gentle questioning sometimes, and also really coming back to the root of we want to live and we have one basic necessity, whereas Big Brother is honestly trying, like intentionally trying to tear us apart because they have the resources and we don't.
Yeah.
And they want to keep it.
Good point, thank you. That's good. One more, is there anything else? Richard, what's the time frame? What are we doing? What time do we need to get her to?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Any other? Well, do you want to do your little wrap up? Like, this is what I'd like to leave you with?
Well, let me make sure I put the ad out there first, which is that the National Black Justice Coalition's annual Black Institute will take place during Creating Change Conference in New Orleans. It's January 17th through the 21st. The Black Institute is on the first day of the conference, on the 17th. We're like 95% sure that's the day they're gonna give us. We'd love to see you there. There are folks from all across the country that attend. We'll say it is a Black specific space. But there are other institutes that happen that day that are also race-based for folks to be able to build power within individual community, and then the rest of the week is about people building power together across lines of difference. So I'd love to see you all there. I mentioned the Bipartisan Stamp Act that we're pushing for. Our website is nbjc.org. On social media, we're at NBJC on the Move. Please check out our public policy agenda under our Power and Policy section. We redid it this time around to be focused on the life cycle of civic engagement. So our first pillar looks at legislation that we think, depending on who wins the speaker race, that's going to determine some of this. Our legislation that we've seen bipartisan support that people, are interested in across the aisle, including repealing HIV criminalization laws. And then the second pillar looks at policies and programs that were enacted in the last Congress that have a disproportionate impact on Black, queer, trans, and non-binary people, but too often we have no idea exist. So these programs that are designed to help us, but we don't even know the help is out there, right? And so we want to make sure those resources get out to people. And last but not least, the third pillar on that is about that visioning.
Yes.
Right? It's the legislation, including the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and the BREATHE Act, that we're like, this is urgent and this is what we need. We don't know if y'all gonna work together enough with the current makeup in Congress to get us what we need, but there's an election next year. And we have an opportunity to say, well, if you're not supporting the things that are gonna help make life better for all of us, we're gonna have to find you a replacement. That's whether it's in the primary or the general election, right? Because these are the things that are urgent. And so please check that out. The Action Hub also has other actions, and we're in the process of adding even more. Thanks, shout out to interns. And lastly, speaking of interns, since I'm on a university campus, have to throw the plug that we do have internships available for course credit. They are remote, so can be done from anywhere. We've had folks from the Virgin Islands intern with us before. So we want to make sure folks know that. And then I know I didn't really hit on fully the question about joy. And so I do want to leave that. Find the joy within yourself. Often as advocates, we are looking for the joy, finding the joy outside of ourselves to help bring us to completion. But ultimately, especially when life gets hard and less difficult to predict, being able to find the joy within yourself is going to be what continues to keep you going. And I find that for me, that's been a recent lesson or reminder that even though all of this work is important and necessary, there's also something important about centering yourself on the light inside. Especially if you're someone who tends to bring light to other people, sometimes that then leaves you in the dark. And unfortunately, our community has a disproportionate amount of us that battle with mental health. And so one of the policy programs in the policy agenda that in Pillar 2 is the 988 National Suicide Hotline number. And to me, the thing that I have to share alongside that is, if you are one of those people that tend to push light out and find yourself in the dark, that whether it is deep music, therapy, creating you a playlist, which is what I do, creating you a playlist that like helps you get your life together in the morning and can help reset whatever's going on, right? Or it can be meditation or affirmations. You might have your crew that you should have on speed dial. I haven't done that yet, but I should. I just thought about it. That's a good idea. Should have on speed dial. Have your like top 5, right? It could be friends, family, colleagues, a stranger that you just met that you just hit it off with, and you're just like, you know what? This gonna be one of my speed dial people that you know that you're just like, I need to remember my own light in the midst of this work, because it can be very hard. And there are very few, especially that look like me and Mandy, that make it as long in this work as Mandy has been able to do. And in part, it's hard to fight racism and the LGBTQ movement as Mandy has done, and fight homophobia and anti-LGBTQ bias in the Black community, let alone all the other spaces that Mandy has gone through. And there's no one who breaks through glass ceilings without the shards of glass getting to your skin. And so one of the reflections that I have when I think about you and Nadine in particular is that Nadine Smith, the CEO and co-founder of Equality Florida, one of the longest serving, I think she is the longest serving Black ED in the nation and the queer movement. And until the pandemic, the only way that there has been longevity in our movement in terms of people who have been at the top of organizations has been when people have done what you've done 3 times, which is creating our own organizations.
Very good. Right, making it happen.
Right. Now when we look at the queer movement, since the pandemic, we have Black women who are leaders of the Human Rights Campaign, at the National Center for Lesbian Rights, the National LGBTQ Task Force, right, but that just happened. But prior to you, there was Equality Florida, and then another organization they founded, Equality North Carolina. Right? And so I just, in order to be able to, I want to see more of us stay in the struggle longer and not get burned out, not get cut out, quite literally from the shards of glass that come, the microaggressions that come from working across lines of difference. I want to see more of us be able to look back and have an exhibit, right? And to be able to follow in your footsteps. And you've created a blueprint and a trail that thankfully we're able to follow. And I have such sincere thanks for you and for that gift, because if not for you, there would be no one for us to aspire to.
Wow. Humbled. Thank you.
I think it died on me.
There we go.
Oh.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I commend you. I've been following your work for a while as a Black queer Southerner myself, and I'm as mesmerized by you and your work as you are, Mandy, and I'm grateful for the resources and programs that you've created within UJC. And I'm so excited to come up to DC. Victoria said she's gonna take me, and we're gonna get a tour, me and Mandy. So I'm excited for that, and I wish you safe travels. But as you pack up things, I kind of just want to give Mandy time to close this out. And Mandy, maybe if you want to answer the same question of what brings you joy, and what's going on in the work for you, because you're moving and grooving and doing a lot.
I'll stand, because I've been sitting all day. I think I want to say, first of all, Victoria, it's great to have you up here. When we think about, you know what, I just thought about this wonderful thing, don't mourn, organize, and if there's a need, fill it. Well, that's how we got all these incredible organizations, if someone gets inspired. what I appreciated with Victoria, we've known each other from several different organizations, but when we went and visited the Pauli Murray house, and you have these wonderful, huge things in the yards. I don't know if you've ever been there, but do. Now, the good thing, I live in Durham, I'm not going anywhere, so I am here, and we will continue to have this conversation and continue to figure out what we want to decide we want to do. I would say the one thing I want to make sure we leave with every one of you is an open invitation. This is going to go on until December 3rd. We've got some more people coming in, and I want to make sure. One of them is Walter Nagel, the surviving partner of Bayard, and some other folk. But one more time, thank you to everyone who made this a reality. I think what brings me joy, actually, is I was thinking about this today. Safe travels, Victoria. Text and said, make sure we know you got home. Does that sound good? All right, thank you, Darren. Bye. She's been doing that all day. I'm afraid to see what she has on there. But I will leave you this, and I think you know I always end this way. I was sitting here thinking about, if everyone went around the room right now and asked, how did I end up in this room? When? Who? What? Why? And if we ended up putting this wonderful, I think I called it this wonderful kind of maze, like a timeline, and then we began to think, oh my gosh, there's something in common, or, oh, you know, we talked about that, I think at the National we were talking about that. But then you think about who's not in the room right now, not physically in this room, but who's not here? Who do we make sure that we bring into the fold, the conversation, whatever language, whatever culture that might be. But every time I see a little baby, that's what gives me hope. A little baby is just a wonderful bundle of joy. You know, they're out there giggly and all that. And then what is it about the journeys of each one of us that has different paths that take us different places? But where are those moments or those markers where you can actually have a profound impact? And I will continue to say my usual line is the changing of hearts and minds and the changing of public policy. Hearts and minds is like poetry, dance, art, concerts. Why do we keep on doing these marches, and why do we keep on having, whatever that might be, the cultural aspects, however we might define that. But without the public policy part of what that means, how critical that is. Remember, with all due respect, no women and no black folk or people of color sitting up in Congress. Someone had to say maybe that has to change. But the one that I want to leave you with, I know this is a little weird to say, but the word is Ms. And this is why. When you think about the fact, and this is just a cultural thing, I think it's relevant, but I remember every time you would open up, it would either be Miss or Mrs. And I remember when someone dared think about, what about the word Ms., someone said, oh no, we need to know whether you're single or not. Men have been called Mr. all the time, how come they don't have to drive? And then the point that made all the difference, the New York Times, what's it called, the Gray Lady, whatever it's called. We will never, ever, ever use that word Ms. Well, that came and went in a minute. And now you don't even think twice about it. But I think people need to backtrack and think about when was all this struggle, when was it was just nearly impossible, but you know it was not if, it's going to be a question of when. And what I'm so excited about, I think we're in this amazing moment. I think the more pushback we get, I think we're heading in the right direction, y'all. Bring it. Think about that. And how do we invite people into the conversation? How do we invite people into in a way we can feel like we can be a collective we? And we have some amazing opportunities right now. If you live in Durham, doesn't matter, going on to 2024 and beyond. So that's what I say. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And then we all get to decide how, when, where, however that might be. But I want to be a part of that joy with y'all. Sound good? Yeah. So on that note, we still have wine, water, snacks. Go for it. And thank you again, Laura, Sally, who am I missing? Kelly was just here, Meg, Zune, who else am I missing?
Naomi.
And Naomi. Where's Naomi? Oh, in front of me. And all of you, thank you collectively. Can we do a little thank you? You're free to go and go see the exhibit too. We're going to be here hanging out if you want to do more yakking and stuff. Sound good? Anything you want to...
I just want to say I'm Laura Mickham. I'm the director of the Sally Bingham Center. I want to thank Sally for being here.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank Randy Carter and Victoria. Such a for an amazing, amazing evening.
Right.
Thank you both.
All right, that's it, we're good. Anyone? All right, great. Hey, can we get a picture? Do you mind if anyone, we're gonna just take, if you don't mind.
selfie again, man?
Yeah, we can do.